Nakuru. It's our own country and there's nowhere to run.
My name's Captain Job Kareithi, and I work on lines of climate change. The current scenario in Kenya, especially when we talk about the lakes, is a little scary because lakes are swelling and threatening the neighborhood towns. A good example is Nakuru, Lake Naivasha. These are lakes that have been there since the beginning of time, but which now are looking exhausted and sometimes even threatening because the water is filling and getting to the towns. Flood control is no longer there. There need to be either a new way of doing things, or people would have to move because the water levels are rising and the real cause is not really known. So it's one of those things that we should be looking at and that we need to look at and address. Some among the reasons why lakes swell is because they also are the depository of almost everything that comes from the highlands, with erosion. Some of the animals die and eventually find themselves in there. And so the bottom or the floor of the lake keeps on becoming higher and higher as you get more debris into the lake. So one of the very best ways to sustain lakes is to dredge lakes. And you dredge lakes so that you remove, it's literally like desilting a lake. So you remove that depository or those deposits at the bottom, and so the water gets more space. And I think we need to do that. The other things that are coming up is a theory that these lakes that are along the Rift Valley could be, there could be plates, the earth, the bottom plates could be moving. That's probably correct, but every dam or lake needs to be dredged and dredged properly so that you don't spoil the biodiversity in the lake. And again, those deposits at the bottom can also be used because most of those deposits are not sand. Most of them in these freshwater lakes are an accumulation of organic matter. That's the fish, the crocodile, if it lived there, the hippo that died there, some gazelle that came in and was, died during a flood and was dropped there. All those things are good and should be taken from there. Another thing that I've seen, especially in lakes like Lake Baringo, is the lake is surrounded by an area that's very fragile ecosystem with no forests. So you find that a lake like Lake Baringo collects more than half a million tons of soil every season. So again, that soil will close or lock the breathers in freshwater lakes. So you find the lake now from then on starting to become salty or saline. And to avoid that, again, you do need to remove whatever is, not supposed to be in the lake. And that mud or that erosion, that soil should be removed so that the lake can get its breathers, so the water can be able to still go. Also, the lakes have got their breathers at the bottom. You can't see them, you'd have to know where they are or find out scientifically where they are, where the suction is. But most of the lakes have got breathers. If you block the breathers, it's just like in plumbing. If you block, then again, you're going to have a problem. But just on a general tone, I would imagine that very, very first thing we need to do with our lakes is to dredge them, to clean them, to remove the debris, to create more space for water, to create more oxygen under the water, because again, the more organic matter you have at the bottom of the lake, the more methane or what we capture as biogas, but it's called methane. The more methane you'll be leaking, and all these things could be avoided or could be redone in a sustainable manner when you now understand how to deal with the debris or the deposits at the bottom of the lake.
Maybe apart from the flooding and people migrating, what maybe might happen next if they're not drenched?
Most of the lakes dry when you cease to take care of them, because it's like a cup. A cup is deep, so it's very hard to lose water by evaporation from a cup. But in a plate, the plate is not deep, but it is wide, so the rate of evaporation in a plate is higher than the rate of evaporation in a cup or in a glass. If your lake is not deep, then you know it's living on life is short, because it means that while a lake is a cleft, when God was making lakes, because He did, the lake was a cleft which has taken all the depositories up to now. And if you don't remove, then there must be, when it will fill, and what happens is they dry. It becomes just a wetland, then it becomes muck. And that's exactly what's happening in Lake Nakuru. And a good example of why I would say that in Lake Nakuru, a helicopter crashed in the lake. A helicopter is what you call, is designed to float, because it should not, and it's not like a stone, it's designed to float. But within minutes, you could not see it because there is mud, it's wet mud. That wet, the mire, the muck. That is why even search and rescue in a lake like that is very difficult. So it is important to remove that wet matter, which is a deposit, fresh deposit. It's called sapropel or sapropelic colloids, which means these are colloids of fresh water marine life that keeps on dying and and creating stratas or levels, and so it should be studied well, then dredged. Some of that matter can be used as fertilizers. It's very, very good as organic fertilizers. And some of the lakes that are even selling can be used to create fertilizers that are basic, so that the problem of Kenya and the acidic soils can be solved that way. But again, you need to have a picture that is holistic. The picture, for you to be able to deal with lakes, you need the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Agriculture, even the Ministry of Forest that deals with forestry, the ministry that deals with energy. All those should come together, and even more than that, and create one initiative, and that is how we're going to deal with dredging of the lakes. We will create fertilizers. It will be an industry, so these are green industries. We will correct the methane so that we can be able to use this methane for energy, because that's what you call biogas. We will be able to even redo the forest so that you can rework the water catchment areas. All these initiatives should be cooked in one pot. In many countries have that position under the prime minister, so that the ministers are controlled, or the policy and the initiatives are controlled from one place. In Kenya right now, I don't think we have anything like that going on, but it's something that we need to look at, and look at the geology of the lake, as well as the basic understanding of what is at the bottom, what is the mud at the bottom, and how shallow is the water, and how deep is the real water outside of the mud. Because that mud, if you remove it, then you have water.
Maybe what will happen if these lakes dry? What will happen to the vegetation and the human life?
The thing to understand with climate change is that life is no longer the way we used to know it. So when your lake dries, you just stay dry, and some areas are going to be deserts. Some other areas are going to be vegetative that used to be desert. Currently, Kenya is drying and East Africa is drying, and it might be the next Sahara, because at this time, some of the areas of Sahara having way more precipitation or rain than usual. A good example is Chad. You find Chad with floods. Chad is in the desert. You find floods in Burkina Faso. That is in the desert. You find, a lot of rain now happening in Mali. In places like, even Morocco, you find more rain now. The Harmattan winds are carrying more moisture. The moisture that used to go to Europe is coming to Africa. And I say that because right now, as we are talking, Portugal is really burning. It's they've seen the hottest days, and we are talking about, fall. The weather now is what you call autumn or fall, just before winter. But again, you find that Europe has gone through a very, very harsh temperatures and set of temperatures. You find that the northern hemisphere is drying out with a lot of ice or snow melting from the Arctic and all that. Loss of glaciers from those areas, all that ice. So the area is warming, and then the weeds turn as the pressure systems change, and you find that Northern Africa and starting from the West Africa is getting way more precipitation, and East Africa is not getting any precipitation. So again, these are all things that come with climate change, and that needs to be studied, needs to be seen, decisions needs to be done. But before anything else, the policies around them needs to be refreshed. Countries need to start going into a little deeper science on what is happening about precipitation. Where are the low pressure belts? Is there a change? Where are the high pressure belts? Is there a change? How is the rainfall patterns coming in? And these are the ways that farmers will be able to know when to expect rain, when to expect El Nino, when to expect El Ninos, even probably tell when we could have tsunamis.
And maybe my last, you attended COP26, and now we are going to COP27. Do you think what was discussed in COP26 has been implemented up to now?
Yes, I did attend COP26 in Glasgow, and now I'm going for COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. Once you create a global initiative like what was going on in COP26, which was mainly to discuss the Paris Agreement and come up with ways to implement, it takes time to implement. It was also looking at how different countries are dealing with their nationally determined contributions. These are the decisions countries are making on how to avoid the increase in temperatures beyond 2 degrees, and that's part of the Paris Agreement. All these things are talked about, and then different countries go now and create their own understandings and their own activities and their own initiatives or demands out of what is available. Currently, we are working towards creating new methodologies. You hear a lot of Article 6, which is the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, and that's what we're going to be discussing a whole lot when we go to Sharm el-Sheikh in COP27 in Egypt. All these things countries need to follow. They need to know what to do, because most countries know what was going on during Kyoto Protocol, and there is a complete change and death of Kyoto Protocol the way we know it to a new protocol, which is the Paris Agreement as a protocol, and others. There are more mechanisms, to look at different solutions in climate change, like the adaptation benefits mechanism, which was never there before. And all these things need to be studied better and nations need to get in there to be able to, one, voice their concerns about their own country and how to raise their own resiliences. Two, look for technologies that are needed to be able to avert the possible vulnerabilities that are coming out of it. And three, looking for money, because there is communal money from the UNFCCC and other groups where now the nations can look for that money to be able to implement the initiatives they would like to implement. Yeah.
Maybe my very last, what's your expectation is in COP27?
I have serious expectations in COP27 because I represent a very active society in West Africa, both in Cote d'Ivoire and in Benin. I feel good because I know that if you have a program now, it's easy to finance it. And so we have programs and we want to finance. I also feel good because the more we get into these kind of scenarios, the more the Earth looks at how important climate change issues are. And so even the value of carbon, carbon credits, a ton of carbon, is also increasing, making the polluter pay the one cleaning better, and making the people who would be creating the mitigation activities like growing trees or capturing methane gas, which would otherwise go and pollute, giving them more reasons why they should continue in that, because then it becomes more lucrative, much better economically. It also is the turning point for those polluters that must be there, like the airline industry, the shipping industry, the energy industry. All those people and all those sectors also will need to understand that to clean the emissions they're doing, they need to pay more per ton, and it's becoming acceptable so that we can have the actions that can revert the heating, the global warming, really done, and so that we can avoid that. We are getting on a turning point, and this is really, really serious, and the whole earth must come together. And so those people or those sectors or those groups or those individuals that are cleaning the earth or removing the greenhouse gases, like the ones who are planting trees, even sectors like coffee, tea, cocoa, cashew nuts, all those sectors will now start earning premiums because of carbon credits to their farmers or to their operators. That changes. There's also another angle to this. We have now come to an understanding that it's not just a tree that is living that carries carbon. Even wood that is used to build a house, to build furniture, to build different things that you need, carries carbon. And that's where we bring in issues like CDR, carbon dioxide removal, or CDU, carbon dioxide usage. Because even to create your own food, you still will have to consume carbon dioxide, because your plants, your maize, your beans, your cassava, your banana is photosynthesizing. It is using carbon dioxide to make food. And that was never given attention by the Kyoto Protocol. So when we go to Sharm el-Sheikh for the COP27, I feel good because we'll be talking about those kind of things, and especially also bring agriculture pretty much in the front with issues like climate smart agriculture, and also given that food security is also a very big problem that also emanates from climate change. So all these different issues will come together and will be discussed, and we can come into real serious solutions on the ground.
Do you see anywhere to run if this is not implemented, especially in our own motherland?
Kenya is a nice country, but we don't seem, we are well located. We even have United Nations environmental program here, UNEP. We have a big campus of the UN here, but we are not doing well. And I say that because there's no way we can be caught in the El Nino that's going on right now to the point where we are, and just be caught there unawares. We should have been seeing it coming. Our scientists should have been taking time to study it. Our policies should be done such that we should be able to have early warnings, but we don't have. And we are in a very, very fragile ecosystem. There are no trees. There is no vision of that. I had the president talk about planting trees, but you don't just plant trees. It's not just forests. We must talk about agroforestry. Like now I was at the coast, and what I saw in Kareithi is lack of vision in the way agroforestry is being done. There is nothing. You see a mango tree here, you go and see another one, another place there. You see a cashew tree here, you see the other one, another place there. So it's not something that's planned as a sustainable arrangement. We need to create that. We need to go back to how it used to be. Kareithi had cashew nuts. Cashews are very good ways of, checking the climate. And it's also food and good nutrition. Then on the bottom, on the ground level, they had the cotton. That is also good because it also has the element of feeding from the seed and the element of, of clothing. But if you look at today, there is nothing. It's not happening. It's just there. Look at the areas that are very dry, Garissa and all those Wajir. Those are areas that are cotton areas. We need a holistic picture, a picture that not just, a picture that doesn't just talk about the tree that's going to be planted there, but talks about forest landscape restoration programs. How you're going to restore it, how it's going to be done in a sustainable manner, how this place is going to be in 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, and, and be sustained. Those things are necessary. I would also like to mention that even our water tables, our water catchment areas need a lot of thinking at this point. Not just the forest. No. The forest and the agroecological area also, because the areas of tea, the areas of coffee, and going down to where you have the grain and all that, all those areas need to be rethought and they need to be seen from a new angle. Think about even ground cover in terms of canopy to protect the UV from hitting the soil. All these many things need to be seen. And I think it should be not just one minister doing it, but a consortium of ministers probably led by the Minister of Environment or the ministry that's dealing with forests or ministry that's dealing with food, agriculture. These things need to be seen, and I would really advise the ones that are in positions that make decisions to use consultants to understand these things, not to just do things the way they used to be done. This is a time for change, and changes come, so we need to change and adopt the new technologies and new ways of thinking and new initiatives for implementing.
Okay, finally, I do feel that the mother challenge in this country over the whole issue is ignorance now in our country. Do you feel that maybe we need to relook our curriculum? We do have maybe a course or a subject that really addresses the climate change too. For us, you expert, you go and address the student, they come knowing what really it takes to have the climate change.
You're right, you're very right.
Having CRE, GSC, CRE, I don't mean they're not good.
Yeah. Climate change needs to be taught right from the beginning. Even a child who learns to talk needs to be told about climate change. Water, we used to think is a resource that's always going to be available. It's not. And now you look at glass slabs. We used to think they are available. They are not. You look at food. We didn't think that there would be any problem in food. Food is a big problem. We used to take for granted things like rain and rainwater and running water. These things should not be taken for granted. There should be solutions. So water harvesting should be part of it. And I would like to mention that the biggest issues, even at a global level, include capacity building. So how much money are we getting from climate change sources to create climate change capacity building within our communities, right down to who you call Wanjiko, to the bottom. Other things include technology transfer. When you see a place heating up from the sun, that tells you that you have a lot of energy that's coming from solar. And now, to imagine that we are still thinking about hydroelectricity, that's a joke now, because water levels will be going low. There will be nothing to run the hydro systems, but we have a lot of solar, and we should be running towards those areas. As you see dryness, you see winds starting to come in. We need to harness the wind energy, and many more things. Waste management should be part of how we create our energies and our circular economies based on those things. But all these things require understanding. They require knowledge at the different levels, the policy level, the management level, the trainers levels, the extension officers levels. All these knowledge transfer, capacity building, technology transfer, all those things needs to be looked at holistically so that we have one vision carrying all of them at the end of the day. And that's what you'll be able to save us or help us understand the new rhythm in new seasons and new activities, even new foods that we could be using as we get hit by climate change.